far as world champions and who's the GOAT, I think Magnus is the GOAT simply because he's playing the best chess by a bigger margin. He has the highest elo of all time. On the other hand, I would say it's probably Magnus, but I understand people can also say Gary's the best player ever. Remains to be seen. But I think if Magnus is number one for probably another, let's say another 3 to 4 years, I don't think there's any debate at all.
I mean, I think I've said it before. I think Magnus is probably going to be the greatest player ever, and I think in large part that's because the way I see it, I think everybody now is so well prepared with computers that I find it hard to believe that anyone will have as big of a margin over, say, Magnus or anyone else 20, 30 years in the future. I mean, personally, I don't think we'll be playing chess professionally, at least not standard chess in 20 years. So I think that answers the question.
Will Magnus ever be the GOAT of chess? Magnus is the GOAT of chess. I don't think it's a question of if. I mean, I would just say that he is, frankly. That's all. That's what I would say. Just if I'm being honest. So yeah, plain and simple. That's just what I would say. No, he definitely is. No. Anywho, you guys, we're gonna be starting in a second. El GOAT, yeah, he is El GOAT. El GOAT indeed. Well, I mean, I always said basically it depends what your metric is. But I mean, he's won what, 5 world championships. He's number 1. He has the highest rating ever. I mean, okay. I mean, it depends what your metric is. If you want to say who's the best ever by how far of a distance there was, sure, you can say like Paul Morphy or Bobby Fischer in modern times. But I mean, I don't really think that's like, I don't know. That's not the kind of the comparison that I do. I basically look at every generation. The players are better and better, and he still has a big margin.
But first, Magnus. What makes Magnus so good? What are the various aspects of his game that make him so good?
I think for Magnus, he just, that in the end games, if you get there, he's not going to blunder. That's the first thing. So if you reach an end game, he's not going to make a mistake. He obviously plays great openings, and there's just really no defined weakness that he has. There's no weakness that I can think of very specifically. There are many times where players actually out-prepare him in the opening phase, but as soon as they're on their own and they have to think, very oftentimes they'll make mistakes. So there's just no weakness for Magnus, really no weakness. Unlike, say, Kasparov. Like Kasparov, on the other hand, there are very clear weaknesses in his game. Like Kramnik exploited them. First of all, I don't want to say like ego is the right word, but like very stubborn, believing that his openings were infallible, that he could just win, he could just prove an advantage and win the game out of the opening, like against Kramnik when he ultimately lost. Also, generally not a great defender either, very strong tactically. But if he was in positions that were defensive, he would make mistakes and lose in endgames like he did in one of those games in the World Championship against Kramnik. So there were very clear defined weaknesses in Kasparov's game. Whereas like Magnus, there are no clearly defined weaknesses. Maybe he doesn't like being attacked. Maybe that's the one thing. He likes king safety and he doesn't like being attacked, but that's not something that you can easily do. Whereas say, if someone's very tactical and they're not as strong positionally, that is something you can that will happen quite frequently in games. You can steer games a certain way. Doesn't mean you'll always get there, but that is something tangible. Whereas king safety, that's not something tangible at all. It's very, very hard to attack someone unless they play certain style of openings.
If you look at Magnus's results, he's won most of the events he's playing in. He dominated in Vaikonze. I mean, he had a phenomenal result there. Not to lose. So, I can't think of any time where Magnus has lost a game or a match or anything and he hasn't come back stronger. So it's kind of weird. It's weird to view it this way. Also because let's just say hypothetically Magnus were to quit chess tomorrow. If Magnus were to quit chess tomorrow, I think he's the best player ever. I would say in my opinion, by a big margin. But there is some room for people to say that, okay, he was number 1 for what, like 13, 14 years, but Garry Kasparov was the number 1 player for 2 decades. So there is some potential of people like trying to make the argument that Garry is a better player. Obviously, I don't believe it. I don't think most people do. But I feel like Magnus is someone who it feels like in a way he's looking at his legacy. And if he wins another 1 or 2 matches, it's not even close. Not even close at all. So that's my read of it. Is again, I think he's saying this, and I feel like it's sort of he's playing some mind games with people. But I still think he's going to play at the end of the day. I don't buy it.